The theory of chaos states the formation of our solar system just happened. Proof of intelligent design to our solar system would destroy the theory of chaos. In 1995, Solag released the Creator Formula. Fans of Solag say the Creator Formula and Solag's planetary distance formula are the mathematical proof that the solar system was intelligently designed. Can it be Solag has given mankind the proof of God? In the Creator Formula, Solag shows how two symbols in the creation myths of several major religions are a simple formula to create the perfect circumference of the earth. The two main symbols of the Creator Formula are the cube and the period of 100 years. The cube appears in ancient Egyptian symbolism as a symbol for creation. The cube was considered the earth by the Pythagoreans of ancient Greece. The cube is represented as the Holy of Holies in the Old Testament. Brahma, the creator god of Hinduism, sits on a cube throne that is said to represent earth. A symbol of creation in Buddhism is the cube. To this day, Muslims dance around a black cube in Mecca. The number 100 is also featured prominently in the creation myths of ancient religions. Abraham was 100 when Isaac, the father of Israel, was born. Brahma lived to be 100 years old, and Hindu myth says the earth was designed using the age of Brahma, that being 100 years. In ancient Greece, the god Hermes was said to measure the earth using his books of wisdom. The number of Hermes' books was 36,525. That number is the amount of days in 100 years. NASA has spent millions of dollars to measure the earth exactly. NASA says the equatorial circumference of the earth is 24,902 miles. The polar circumference of the earth is 24,860 miles. The average of these two numbers is 24,881 miles. 24,881 is the average circumference of the earth. The cube is described mathematically as having 6 sides, 8 corners, and 12 lines of dimension. That is expressed mathematically as 6, 8, 12. The Creator Formula uses two numbers. The first is the days in 100 years of Earth orbits around the Sun. That number is 36,525. The second number is based on the dimensions of the cube, 6 sides, 8 corners, and 12 lines of dimensions. 36,525 times 0.6812 equals 24,881, the perfect circumference of the earth. Why do the days in 100 years of Earth orbits multiplied by the dimensions of a cube equal the perfect circumference of the earth? Why do these symbols appear in the ancient creation myths of Egypt, Greece, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam? The reason Solag called this formula the Creator Formula is due to it being an acronym for circumference, ratio, Earth, aligned to, orbital rotations, Creator. In 2002, Solag released a proof for his Creator Formula. That proof is known as PDF, or the Planetary Distance Formula. The first part of PDF explains how all the eye-visible planets in our solar system are ratio aligned to Earth. The only exception is Venus. The odds of Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn all being ratio aligned to Earth is astronomical. The fact that these planets are indeed ratio aligned to Earth is proof the theory of chaos is false. The fact that 4 out of 5 eye-visible planets in our solar system are ratio aligned to Earth is proof that our solar system was intelligently designed. The way to see the ratio alignment is by comparing the circumferences of these ratio-aligned planets to Earth and then analyzing the circumference ratios to the orbital ratios. For instance, the circumference of Mercury is 9,525 miles. The circumference of Earth is 24,881 miles. The ratio between 9,525 and 24,881 is 0.38. That is the circumference ratio. This number matches the orbital ratio. The distance of Mercury to the Sun is 36 million miles. The distance of Earth to the Sun is 93 million miles. The ratio of 36 to 93 is 0.38. That is the same ratio as the circumference ratio between Mercury and Earth. These two numbers should not be aligned to each other perfectly in a solar system created by chaos. The next planet in our solar system that is aligned to Earth in this exact manner is Saturn. The circumference of Saturn is 235,296 miles. The circumference of Earth is 24,881 miles. The ratio between 24,881 and 235,296 is 0.10. The distance of Saturn to the Sun is 890.8 million miles. The distance of Earth to the Sun is 93 million miles. The ratio between the distance of Saturn to the Sun and the Earth to the Sun is 0.10. Once again, the circumference ratio of Earth and a planet matches the ratio of the distances of these two planets to the Sun. Both planets, Mercury and Saturn, are perfectly aligned to their circumference ratios to Earth and their orbital distances to the Sun. Proof of design. The next two planets that align to the circumference of Earth to their own circumferences are Mars and Jupiter. Both planets have circumference ratios perfectly aligned to Earth, since the period of their orbits around the Sun are ratio aligned to Earth's orbit around the Sun and circumference. For instance, the circumference of Mars is 13,264 miles. The circumference of Earth is 24,881 miles. The ratio between Mars and Earth is 13,264 to 24,881, or 0.53. The orbital ratio between Mars and Earth is the same number, 0.53. Mars orbits the Sun in 687 days. Earth orbits the Sun in 365.25 days. The ratio between these two orbital numbers is 0.53, the same exact ratio as the circumference ratio between these two planets. The next planet in our solar system to be perfectly aligned to Earth is Jupiter. The circumference of Jupiter is 279,118 miles. The circumference of Earth is 24,881 miles. The ratio between 279,118 and 24,881 is 0.08. Jupiter's orbit around the Sun is 4,331 days. Earth's orbit around the Sun is 365.25 days. The ratio between 365.25 and 4,331 is 0.08, the exact same ratio as the circumference ratio between Earth and Jupiter. As you can see, both Mars and Jupiter are ratio aligned to Earth's circumference, as is Mercury and Saturn. Why are 80% of the eye-visible planets ratio aligned perfectly to Earth's circumference and orbital measurements? In a solar system created by chaos, these planets would not be ratio aligned to Earth. Chaos did not create the solar system. It was intelligently designed, as the planetary distance formula clearly shows. Isn't it amazing that most religious paths have the key symbols of the creator formula in their creation myths? The time has come for world religions to unite to one truth. That truth is, we live within a created solar system.
One of the best things we can do for our economy, our health, and our environment is to lead the world in producing cleaner, safer energy. And we're already generating more clean energy than ever before. Thanks in part to the investments we made in the Recovery Act, the electricity America generates from wind has tripled. And from the sun, it's increased more than tenfold.
gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna drink your blood. I'm gonna drink your blood. I'm This is Solog. This is not a hoax. There are many thousands of web pages about me. Check Google for Solog, S-O-L-L-O-G. The reason? I am known to predict earthquakes and hurricanes and historic acts of evil. Since 1995, I've been writing about the line of Solog. This Haiti quake struck the line of Solog, as did the Oklahoma City bombing and many other events like Columbine Massacre. Since 2007 or so, I've been writing about the pentagram of blood. 13 days before the Haiti quake struck, a trailer for a new Adoni film movie was released to YouTube. Look at Adoni Film's user account. You will see this map in it. It features the point of the pentagram of blood in the area where the great Haiti quake hit. Some say it was UFOs or the US government. Some say it was an act of God. Some say I predicted it. The quake did strike one day from a group of dates I usually use in my esoteric writings, dates with 113 in them. In many parts of the world, it was 113 or January 13th when the great Haiti quake struck. Although local time, it was late in the day on 112 or January 12th. Look at all the events in the video tied to the pentagram of blood before hundreds of thousands were killed in the great Haiti quake. Soon millions, and possibly billions of you will be dead. Welcome to the apocalypse.
This is the USGS website run by the US government, and you can look up earthquake data here. Now what I've done is I've put in a date range from 73 to 2000 and a minimum quake of 2, which is not even going to really feel that. And I'm going to create a circle around Oklahoma City. So we put in 35.3 as the latitude, negative 95.3. It's right around where Oklahoma City is. And we're going to make the inside radius 2 and the outside radius 3. In other words, all the quakes in almost a 300-mile zone. And the time frame is 73 to 2000, before horizontal fracking began. Now, this is an earthquake zone, and you can see here on the map that there are quakes, and it looks like a substantial amount, 94. And over here it shows you all the various quakes where they're located close to Oklahoma City. So 94 from 73 to 2000, which is over 25 years. Now we just go back to the same page, and all we're going to change is we're going to go, okay, let's go 73 to 2014. So now we're doing the whole period. It was 94 before 2000. All the other information is the same. 2.0 quakes, right around a 300-mile radius of Oklahoma City. Now when we search, the cluster's very big, and the main thing here is it says there's 1,744 earthquakes in that region. So we went from under 100 to almost 2,000. Most of them are after 2000. And if you look down here on the list, you're going to see that most of them are after 2015, when fracking really took off. So up until 2005, we don't really have a lot of earthquakes in this area. So most of those quakes are in the last 10 years. This is de facto proof that horizontal fracking has created almost 2,000 earthquakes in the past 10 years in the Oklahoma City region. Now you're not going to hear that in the media, but that's the raw facts from the USGS that anyone can look up And I'm not sure the USGS is going to keep this information where the public can get at it that easy. So this video shows how significant earthquakes around Oklahoma City are. Now if we go back to this map, we can zero in here. We'll just center the image. Okay, and then we're going to zoom in to show you how many quakes there really are. This is what 2000 earthquakes looks like. You can see they're all right around Oklahoma City. That is what horizontal fracking does, people. They're fracturing horizontally weak areas of the Earth's crust, and they're creating mini earthquake zones. Come on, 2,000 earthquakes. Granted, a lot of them aren't that significant. You're not going to feel them, but enough of them are in the 4.0 and even 5.0 range where when they occur, they're significant in that level. But you can see here, absolute proof what horizontal fracking does to the Earth. It creates earthquake zones. Period. Case closed. People, this is the USGS.gov site. It's the United States government's geological survey, and this is where you can search their database for earthquakes. Now what I've done here is I've put in a date range from right around when the database began to be significant, 1973, and all we're going to do is search up to about 2000. Okay? We're going to search for tiny quakes starting at 2.0, which you wouldn't even really feel a 2.0 earthquake. And we're centering 30.3 as the latitude in a circle. That's Austin, Texas, with a latitude of negative 97.7. So if you put in 30.3 and negative 97.7, you're drawing a circle right around Austin. Now we're going to go the inside radius 2 to an outside radius 3. In other words, we're going to draw a 300-mile, or actually it's a kilometer, circle around Austin. Now we'll search. You're going to see there's only 12 earthquakes from 73 to 2000 around Texas. So that's the number right there in the top left. It says there's 12 earthquakes in this region. Now, if we go back to the USGS and all we do is we extend the year search to go from 73 to 2014, current time. We're going to be adding 14 years of earthquakes to the search. So it's over 40 years. The first search was 26 years. Now we're adding another 14. Everything else is the same. Latitude, longitude, radius, it's all identical. So all we're doing is increasing the time search to add what's happened recently. Now when we search, it goes from almost none to 120. So 12 to 120. That's the real damage that horizontal fracking has done. And if you look here on the left side, you'll see that almost all these earthquakes have happened recently. They didn't start to 2007 really, and that's when horizontal fracking started in the Texas region. Now we're going to zoom in on this map and show you that these are only quakes right around Texas. So there's the state of Texas. You can see the Eagle Ford Formation has the recent activity, and up here near Dallas, northwest of Dallas, where all the homes are shaking, that's where all these new earthquakes have happened. And And this is the zone where horizontal fracking is being done. So you had a seismically stable area. After 2007, when they start doing horizontal fracking, you go from almost no earthquakes to over 100 earthquakes. And it's only going to get worse. This is the impact of horizontal fracking. You cannot deny this information. This is real data right from the USGS, a government site, and no one in the media is really talking about how you find this information. And I don't know how long the USGS is going to keep this public information up where you can actually go in there and see the environmental impact of horizontal fracking. So an area had almost no quakes in over 25 years, and now it has over 100. That is what horizontal fracking does. This is Dr. Saul Adoni, and this video is about the prime algorithm. It's a 30 mod prime algorithm that I theorized in the 1990s and released originally through what I call the ANISA prime formula. The 8 prime channels that create the infinite universe of primes is easily viewed using a 30 mod chart. On the left side of this chart here, we begin with the number 0. So 30 mod 0 is 0. And then the 8 prime channels are the top row. These are the primes that are greater than 5. The first 3 primes are 2, 3, and 5, which 2 times 3 times 5 equals 30, which is the mod, or the field of play, or the field of action, or the infinite universe of prime numbers will exist. So what this chart shows is the potential prime candidate field. It is 32 rows of numbers by 8 columns, 256 potential prime numbers. Every prime above 5 is going to exist somewhere in this field of 256 numbers for the first 0 through 31 rows. So we'll see here 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31. Those are the base prime seeds. These 8 numbers, which are all primes above 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31, with a simple math equation using 30 mod times any integer, will create a potential prime number. So we have 256 potential prime numbers in 30 mod field if we go 0 through 31. Now this is all the numbers, 256 potential prime candidates. This is the actual primes that exist. So all the gaps now are the numbers that are excluded because they're divisible by other numbers. We go from 256 to 160 numbers now that are absolutely prime. So the 30 mod formula correctly showed where every prime from 7 to 953 in this particular example exists. Not one prime above 5 is outside of these 8 channels. So you can see how we went from 256 numbers, the total potential prime field, into the reality of 160 numbers, or 62.5% of these potential primes were actually primes. That is very simply the 30 mod algorithm. Now, About 10 years after I released this algorithm, and I did discuss 60 mod, 90 mod algorithm in the 1990s, a couple math people by the name of Atkins and Daniel Bernstein came up with 60 mod, which I had already discussed in my initial work in the 1990s. Bernstein and Atkins came up in 2004 with 60 mod, which is just doubling this simple 30 mod channel. So it's just laying out the graph a little bit different, or rather the spreadsheet. Again, these numbers can be manipulated into any mod of 30. So 60 is 2 times 30. 90 mod would be 3 times 30. 210 mod would be 7 times 30. So again, you can manipulate these numbers left to right in this example showing a chart, as long as they are a multiple of 30. You're going to come out with basically the same structure, but you're going to view it differently. Again, I explained all this in the 1990s, 30 mod, 60 mod, 90 mod, because I was more interested in the compression integers that come about once you get up into a 90 mod chart. It shows a definite pattern that's very interesting, to me at least, to some other mathematicians as well. But again, you can see here, once you get above 5, every prime number is in this field of action that the 8 prime seeds create. So this spreadsheet here is just a simple 30 mod chart. The first row is the 8 prime channels, or the 8 prime seeds, and these are also known as the spiral channels, or the 8 prime spirals. Basically, it's a 30 mod formula which is created by the first 3 primes, being 2, 3, and 5. 2 times 3 times 5 is equal to 30. That sets up the field of play, or the field of action for where all the primes in the infinite universe above 5 will exist. The prime seeds are the first 8 primes above the number 5. So 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31 are the prime seeds. 30 is the mod. These rows on the left are just integers from 0 out to 31. So this creates 8 times 32 potential mods. 0 to 31 are all the mods that we're going to analyze. 32 times 8 is 256 potential prime numbers. So before I theorized this in the 1990s, conventional wisdom on primes was that primes were random, there was no pattern. Well, the 8 prime spirals, or the 8 prime channels, or the Adoni primes, or the Adoni prime spirals here proves that primes are not random. There's a clear distribution pattern. So the theory is that every prime number, in this case out to 961, since we're going 30 mod 0 all the way out to 31 mod, is going to be a potential prime number. That gives us a field of 256 potential primes. Now, if we found a prime outside of these 8 channels, then the theory would be wrong. Okay, well, the theory is correct. There's not a prime above 5 that exists outside of these 8 channels. So you take 30 numbers, and you only have to look now at 8 of the 30 numbers, which are all based on 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, and 31. Now, the next chart here shows the actual primes in this field. And what these gaps are these are numbers that are in the prime field, potential field, that are not prime. So what's remaining now are the actual primes. So we went from 256 numbers, and we end up with a large amount of primes. Now, this next chart here is a whole different theory, which I call the super primes. Again, it's 30 mod. We got our 8 seats, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31. So we have our 8 channels of distribution, but instead of having every integer here, we're only going to focus on the integers that are prime. So now this is a 30 mod where the mod is prime instead of any integer. And what this does, this sets up a clear distribution panel for primes that are special primes, meaning that they're created with a 30 mod algorithm using as the integer another prime. So instead of 30n where n can be any integer, it's 30n where the n is a prime number. Now when we do this, we set a dividing line here. You can see this little diagonal that almost equally distributes these numbers. Okay? So these clear diagonals are the basis of what are seen in the Ulam spiral, which isn't new. That's been around since 1963. But basically, these real strong diagonal lines are what people are visualizing when they actually create a picture for the Ulam spiral. Okay, and again, it's more easily visualized how clear this pattern of distribution is with these diagonal lines if we only take prime integers in the 30 mod formula. So I call these super primes, and if we're going to go out here and analyze a whole bunch of primes that are based on primes, we're going to put every prime number on this integer column from 7 to 97. So these are all prime numbers here on the left side. And again, it creates a potential field of 8 columns times 22 primes, which is 176 potential prime numbers. But you can see that some of the numbers are missing these gaps. And what the gaps end up leaving us is 96 actual primes out of 176. So we have 54.54 repeating decimal are primes in this example, where we go out to number 97 as a prime. So we're analyzing 22 prime numbers in the 30 mod formula, and if we go back to the first 8 primes, that's when the real clear pattern of distribution of these super primes is seen. So again, 30 mod is just real simple. There's 8 potential prime channels or 8 prime spirals, and this creates a very narrow field of potential primes. It was recently tested in Pi primes, which is a primality program written in Python, and that's why there's a lot more interest now in these math theories. Since in 2012, when Pi primes came out, it tested all the conventional prime algorithms, and up until this actual 30 mod equation was tested in Pi primes, the fastest prime generator for basic prime generation was always the sieve of Eratosthenes, which is over 2,000 years old. So when you look at the work in Pi primes, you'll see that all the newer prime generators like wheel fractionization, various other prime algorithms, they didn't do that well in Pi primes. The big prime generator Eratosthenes created a lot of primes very quickly, and the only algorithm that beat it was the 8 prime spirals. Now when you look at the work of pi primes done in 2012, he called it the Croft spirals because Steve Croft, a former Microsoft employee, had created in 2010 a website about what he thought he had found, but it was already 15 years old by the time Steve Croft came up with his website. So now I'm explaining the theory. Since in the 1990s I discussed this, in my mathematic paper known as the NISA prime formula, and a few other prime papers after that, because I also found various sequences that are related to these sequences in the twin primes, Mersenne primes, Fibonacci primes. There's a lot of patterns that I discussed way back in the 1990s that some mathematicians now are starting to realize. But the main thing here is, if we just analyze primes that come off of prime integers in the 30 mod algorithm, the distribution pattern is beautiful. You can see this strong diagonal here, this strong diagonal here, this group of numbers here, here, here. So when you see numbers like this here, and they're charted out in the picture like the Ulam spiral, which I'll put up in this video, this is why these patterns emerge. Now the other issue about these patterns is ECC, which is a form of crypto developed by Lenstra and further expanded by Koblitz, has been most likely infected with seed keys, where special relationships between the seed keys are known by the groups that are distributing it. And primarily this ECC crypto is coming out of NIST, which is a funded project by the NSA. Now the Snowden documents are saying basically ECC crypto is cooked. That means is they're creating seed keys with these special relationships that you can see in the 30 mod algorithm, and that is how they're understanding the numbers that they're issuing as seed keys have special relationships. So now the issue is, what's the hidden formula that the NSA used to create these special relationships? And a consensus is emerging that it's a prime algorithm in an integer algorithm that the general public is not aware of. Now some people question, well, why didn't I release this information in 1995 when I did my original paper through academia? Well, in that era, the NSA basically had a stranglehold on academia, where if you were theorizing work involving crypto or even prime numbers, because at that time RSA used basically big prime numbers in their cryptography, that it had to go through the NSA. So something that could potentially damage cryptography would never have been published in any academic paper. So it was distributed via the internet, via my websites. It was put in newspaper ads. It was put in federal court records, where I was being harassed at the time by the federal government for my work. And there's no real issue on to who first theorized 30 mod, 60 mod, and 90 mod prime algorithms. It was me in the 1990s. Now the issue is, since pi primes has created a mathematical test showing how powerful this new formula is to create primes, well, the importance of 30 mod prime is now understood. Also, the issue of if primes are random has been settled. Primes are not random. They all exist above the fifth number 5 in one of 8 distribution channels. So the 8 prime spirals control the infinite universe of primes. And from this moment on, a lot of people will be looking at primes much differently than they have in the past when this information wasn't general knowledge. Exactly how the NSA cooked their seed keys for ECC, well, it involved knowledge of special relationships between numbers.
Never in the history of mankind has any prophet been so accurate in his prophecies. Solog is one of the only 2 living people listed by Yahoo in their prophecies directory. The rest are famous seers who have long passed away, such as Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce. In 1995, Solog started to publicly release his now infamous prophecies. He is so accurate in his predictions that many of his fans consider him to be a modern-day Nostradamus. Solog is one of the most discussed topics on the internet. Thousands of pages about him are listed in most search engines, and close to 100,000 posts about Solog are in the archives of Usenet. Solog is so accurate in his prophecies that he is one of the most investigated people in the history of the FBI, with over 3,000 pages in his FBI file. When you see how accurate Solog has been in his writings about recent events such as 9/11, the Madrid massacre, the Great 2004 tsunami, the Oklahoma City bombing, TWA 800, the deaths of Princess Diana and JFK Jr., as well as many other recent events, and then learn what he says about the near future when nuclear terrorism becomes a reality, the hair on your neck will not only stand up, it may never go back down. On 9/11, or September 11, 2001, the world changed forever. The only modern seer or mystic to warn of 9/11 publicly with exact information before this tragic event occurred was Solog. On 9/11, 1998, Solog issued the following warning about 9/11 publicly via Usenet. It was 3 years to the exact date of 9/11. It stated, "On 9/11 there will be a major emergency in D.C." This warning was archived by a major search engine with a timestamp. The FBI investigated Solog over this warning. There are now over 3,000 pages in the Solog FBI file due to the fact he was investigated by the FBI over the Oklahoma City bombing as well as 9/11. Solag sued the U.S. government in early 1996 for detaining him after the Oklahoma City bombing occurred. The case number of the file is 96 CV 1499. In 1997, Solag released the 902 prophecy via Usenet, where it was archived with a timestamp by a major search engine. The 902 prophecy stated, major terrorism would occur in September in New York City. Solag called it the Big Bang at the Big Building. 4 years later, 9/11 struck in New York City at the biggest buildings in the city, at the World Trade Center. The Philadelphia City paper mocked Solag's 902 prophecy about major terrorism in New York City in September. The article appeared in that paper on September 11th, 1997, 4 years to the exact date of 9/11. After 9/11 occurred, Der Spiegel, the largest paper in Germany, did several articles about the Solag 9/11 warning. They mentioned the City paper article as well. Days before 9/11 occurred, Leo Phoenix, a Solag fan, warned of 9/11 in Usenet. Why haven't the U.S. media mentioned the Solag and Leo Phoenix 9/11 warnings? The 902 prophecy of Solag also warned that the New York City media would be struck in early October after the September terrorism occurred. The New York City media was struck after 9/11 occurred with an anthrax attack in early October. Both events were clearly foretold by Solag in his 902 prophecy. The Nostradamus translations about 9/11 by Solag are world famous. This is what Solag says Nostradamus wrote about this historic event. Century 6, Quatrain 97. 40.5 degrees, a mid-air explosion. Fire near the tall new city in the clouds. In an instant, a great flame-up connected to a boat and a plane explosion. When one is dedicated to understanding this prophecy, the Roman numerals make the proof. How did Solag know 9/11 would connect to DC in tragedy? How did Solag know September would connect to terrorism in New York City? How did Solag know the New York City media would be struck in early October after September terrorism?